The Daf Yomi Shir. It's been on hiatus for a while I was directing the movie Man in the Long Black Coat. And thank God it's just gone amazingly well. We did complete principal photography on the movie and have gone right into editing. I have a little bit more control of my schedule now. But the initial editing is very intense, so we're not quite ready to come out of hiatus on the Daf Yomi class, but God willing soon, and there will be an announcement about that. I'm sure some people have been wondering. So welcome Paula in the great Northwest, Norma in Texas, Carolyn in Raleigh, Yitzhak in Minnesota. It's so great to have you all with us. So let me introduce my guest. This is Rabbi Avshi Weingot from the holy city of Tzfat. I only just met you yesterday, but I was much taken. He was a visitor here in our minyan yesterday for Shabbos and spoke so beautifully. And luckily he's here in LA another day. And I just said, if there's a chance he could come and meet our audience, it would be wonderful. So here you are.
Oh, Hashem, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for hosting.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor. And maybe you want to just tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your synagogue and your yeshiva that you run in the holy city of Tzfat.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Avram Shimon Weingot. The nickname is Avshi. And I was born and raised in Tzfat, the holy city, very special city. My father has started yeshiva already since 1992. And Tzfat attracts travelers and holy brothers, holy sisters going around the world. And Baruch Hashem, we have a shul there today, still going with all kinds of holy souls coming through, searching. And it's our zchut, our pleasure to... Yeah.
Now, for those who don't know, there are 4 holy cities in
Correct.
Israel. Is that right? Everyone knows that, the holy city of Jerusalem. And the other 3, I guess, is Hebron.
Right, so the 4 holy cities, they stem from God's name, the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, the letter Yud, the letter Hey, the letter Vav, the letter Hey. This is the name of the Creator, and everything in the world is, so to speak, created through these 4 letters. So the letter Yud, that symbolizes Yerushalayim, and that's the element of fire from the 4 elements. The first Hey is Tiberia, and that's symbolized by water. That's the Kinneret. And then Tzfat is the Vav, the letter Vav, and that symbolizes air, or Ruach, spirit. And the last Hey is Hebron. Hebron is the last Me'arat HaMachpelah. Hebron is called...
That's the cave of the patriarchs and matriarchs where they're buried.
Right, and the name Hebron means connecting. Like Mechubar is connecting. So that's, so to speak, where the worlds are connecting. And through Hebron, through the Me'arat HaMachpelah, the souls leave this dimension and enter. That's the Mechubar. That's the earth. So Tzfat is parallel to the spirit, the very city of wind, city of spirit.
In northern Israel.
Northern Israel. What Tzfat is famous for is Kabbalah. Kabbalah. The Torah itself, just what we discussed before, the number 4. The Torah that we're being given by Moshe Rabbeinu is, we call it the Pardes. The Pardes means there's 4 dimensions to the Torah. So the Pei, what is the acronym, right?
Acronym, yeah.
Acronym. So the Pei will be Pshat. That's the face value or the simple meaning of the word or the law or the story or whatever we're reading. And then there's Remez. Remez is a clue. Where you're ready, you could look deeper and understand based on different clues that you could see in the Psukim, like the Gemara does very often. And based on that, you could uncover another dimension of the Torah. More information, the same words mean different things, and suddenly there's a whole another dimension opens up. Then there's Midrash. The Medrash is oral Torah that was handed down, some of it, most of it in Israel, in the land Eretz Israel. Which
often in Tiberias.
yeah, definitely the Medrash. Mm-hmm. You see in the Medrash stories where they're talking, and that also that opens a whole nother dimension of the Torah, deeper. But then there's Sod. Sod is secret, and in the world of secret, everything has a different meaning. Everything. any word in the Torah, any concept of the Torah is code to a whole nother dimension. And this hidden Torah was the Torah that was received by Moshe Rabbeinu. Moses received this Torah from Hashem, and it was handed or only orally. This is the secret part of the Torah. Till the destruction of the temple, and at that point, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the great Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, went into a cave for 13 years, and when he came out, he wrote the Zohar. And the Zohar is really the most prominent.
The Zohar.
The Zohar, yeah, the textbook of Kabbalah. Even though there were books written before and after, all kinds of many books that were written about the secret, but the holiness of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his devotion to preserve the light and really bring this light till the redemption, the creator of the world granted him a very, very high level, and he was able to bring down the Zohar. And the Zohar is very, very special. In the Zohar itself, it says that the Zohar will be hidden till the time of the revelation. And it's through the Zohar and the light of the Zohar that's the revelation, that's the Geula.
The redemption.
The redemption. So the Zohar, even though it was written right after the destruction of the temple, was hidden from the entire nation till about 500 years ago. And 500 years ago was, in the world of Kabbalah, was a revolution by the coming of the Ari. The Ari was Rabbi Yitzchak Luria Ashkenazi. He's actually born in Jerusalem. And when before he was born already, he was destined to tremendous greatness. When he was young, his father passed away, and then he moved to Egypt. And in Egypt, he studied the deepest secrets of the Torah with Eliyahu Navi, and for years, just alone, till Eliyahu Navi told him, go up to Israel, go to Tzfat, and over there you're going to find Rabbi Chaim Vital, a great scholar. And
so when you say you're studying with Eliyahu Hanavi, you're talking about Elijah the prophet, who came to him, right? Elijah never died. He ascended, and so he's free to come back at times and places as God sends him. And so one of the people who was blessed to learn directly from Eliyahu, from Elijah, was the Holy Ari.
Correct.
While he was in Egypt.
Correct.
Okay.
And the advantage of learning from Eliyahu, from Elijah, versus learning from these you could learn, the secrets. You could see all the words, but if you don't have someone that could teach you, it's godly information. There's no human way to know these things. The textbook, the main textbook of Kabbalah that we have today, the Etz Chaim, which is written by Rabbi Chaim Vital, is you could see in it that it's information that's absolutely godly. There's no human being that could make these things up. It's impossible. And this was the Ari. And when the Ari moved to Tzfat, that became the whole. When he came to Tzfat, Tzfat was full of mystics. It was a very mystical city. And the Arizal explained that the reason it's so important and mystical is because when the presence of God does not rest in Yerushalayim, because of the destruction of the temple, where does the presence of God rest? And he explains that it rests in Tzfat.
And we have a tradition that when Mashiach comes, when the Messiah comes, he'll start in Tzfat, right?
That's true. Our shul, our synagogue, our yeshiva is on Bar Yochai Street in the old city. And
of Tzfat.
Yeah. And right next to me, is one of the most hot tourist spots, which is called the Mashiach alleyway. Anyone that's been to Tzfat, you go with your tour guide into this narrow alleyway, and they tell you a story about an old lady that sat there with a cup of tea waiting for Mashiach every day. They call it Simtat HaMashiach, the Mashiach alleyway. So I'm sitting and I study. And all day, I hear people outside singing, Mashiach, 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 and tour guides, totally secular Jews and non-Jews talking about Mashiach, describing what is Mashiach, people asking questions. I'm feeling messianic consciousness, not just consciousness, just sounds all around. And you really feel it very, very strong in Tzfat.
So let's review a little. So Rabbi Avshi is coming from the holy city of Tzfat. And it's holy for a number of reasons that we've just talked about. But especially that there was this kind of outpouring or kind of revelation of what had been more mystical, hidden dimension of the Torah for about 1,500 years, right? So about 2,000 years ago, more or less. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was given this gift to understand certain hidden dimension, hidden secrets of the Torah, the kind of more mystical aspects of the Torah, and he wrote the Zohar. And then there was just a very small group of people who had access to that for centuries, for 15 centuries. And then Rabbi Yitzhak Luria was given this much expanded insight into that material. He went from the learning that he was doing in Egypt, Jewish community in Egypt, up to the holy city of Tzfat. And there he was part of a group of mystics, including Rabbi Chaim Vital, who had written the Eitz Chaim. And then there was, this tremendous burst, really of creative insight and looking into the Torah. And that this might have stayed a kind of, mystical, center of Judaism that the rest of the Jewish world wasn't really privy to. But that's not what happened. In fact, these teachings were learned and shared and became the basis for Hasidus over in Europe.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And so maybe we could talk a little, and then we're going to get to certain specific teachings and not just keep it so kind of historical, survey. We're going to get into what some of these teachings are, but just so you understand where we're coming from. And so, what was that bridge from this esoteric Kabbalah into Hasidus and into European Jewry?
That's an interesting spin. I like it. So
Okay.
really going from Kabbalah into Hasidus. I would even go back a little bit. Kabbalah really is the lifestyle of the prophets, of the Nevi'im. And the lifestyle of the prophets, Nevi'im, is the same numerical value as Ohavim, as lovers. Because the ultimate midah, ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, mitzav ahavat Hashem, loving the creator of the world, the people that were totally invested in it were just totally in love, and they were the Nevi'im. And when that purity in the world, after the destruction of the first temple, the world could not receive those messages of prophecy anymore. So that's when it turned into Kabbalah. So then the small secret societies would hold on to these practices and meditations and lifestyles of the Nevi'im, and they themselves would reach the highest level possible in spiritual ascent that's possible. It was in Nevuah. That goes on and on and on, and that eventually the Kabbalah, and that becomes Hasidut. And now there's so many aspects to this. I'm trying to keep it simple.
We're really just scratching the surface of what could easily be years of study. But yes, it's just an introduction.
Okay, so the Arizal passed away very young.
Rabbi Yitzhak
Rabbi
Luria.
Yitzhak Luria passed away at age 38. There's a whole story. And before he passed away, his students came to him and said, Rabbi, who are you leaving us with? You started fixing the world, you started healing the world, you brought so much light to the world. He was like the sun. And they said, who are you? If you leave, the world is dark. And he tells them, I'll come back, don't worry. And they say, how? This is how. You're asking me how? And by the Mekubalim today, our understanding is that there's 3 souls that came.
So Mekubalim is Kabbalists, right? So people who are involved in this kind of mystical side of Judaism.
Right. So I've heard this in very, very reliable sources from teachers of mine, that the soul, even though it's one, we have 5 names for it because there's 5 stages of development, so to speak, to reach full spiritual maturity. And the Arizal really was young, and a person at his young age is still developing his levels and not yet attaining them. And there were levels of the Ari that were not revealed yet, and those are called the Neshama, the Chaya, and the Yechida. That means that if we look at I don't want to get into this because it's going to be too long, but so these 3 levels that were not given by him because he passed away early, there were 3 tzaddikim, 3 that were born after him, that each one of them manifested one of those and shunned that into the world. So one of them was the Rashash, Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, who took the Arizal's teachings to a whole nother level. And if you ever see the Mekubalim, when they pray from a Siddur with all the names of Hashem, that's the Siddur al-Rashash.
Okay. So talking about a prayer book
It's
written by...
based on the teachings of the Ari, how he unfolded the Zohar, and you understand the worlds. Now when you're praying, it's not the Shemona Esrei or the Amidah, it's not just words. You're understanding that all these words are code words to what's happening in all the worlds. And the Rashash was able to complete, the Arizal didn't teach exactly how. He just, so to speak, like opened up the science to understand this God in the sky.
And maybe just to say something, when we're talking about levels of soul or the different worlds, perhaps just as a very clumsy metaphor, we could say that God is infinite. God is spirit, some kind of pure light or energy that is endless and we can't understand at all. And at the kind of other end of the spectrum is this real world where God's presence is mostly hidden and things happen and they're material and people live and die. And there's kind of emanations as you go from the spiritual to the material, in a sense becoming more and more material and less spiritual or less and less godly as you sort of go in these emanations traveling from one place to the other. Is that clumsy? Very clumsy. But just as a kind of understanding when we're talking about levels of soul or different worlds.
But there's no reason to be clumsy. Let's go deep. Let's go deep. Let's understand. Zohar is light.
Literally means light.
Light. And this world is dark. The physical dimension. We don't see really what's going on. When a person studies the light, then when they look at the world through the light, they see the world and they see different things in this world. And when we ask Hashem, Refa'enu, heal us, Barech Aleinu, send us Parnasah, you're right. If you know yourself and you know the world, and you're saying, Creator of the world, Master of the world, I'm turning to you, please, mercy, please. You're right, it's fantastic. But if you understand why you're created the way you're created, and what's the world, and why is the world, and what everything is parallel to, then that awareness is, when you're saying Refa'enu, you're not just speaking for yourself.
Heal me.
You're standing in front of the Creator and you're bringing healing to the whole creation, to as much as you know in your mind, to what you know in your mind. If you know yourself, then you're focused on yourself. If you know the world, and through the study of Kabbalah, the heavens open, the skies open, and you realize what there is. Then you realize what you are, and everything becomes deeper, so deep. So now after your eyes are open and you're praying, so you understand the prayer book is missing like tons of information. So the Rashash was able, through the soul of the Ari, the neshama of the Ari that came into him, he was able to complete that part. And he was able to write the prayer book for a Kabbalist. How does a Kabbalist, that after you studied all the spiritual property and all these worlds, now how do you pray? Meaning, what do you think when you pray? Or where are you bringing light from where to where? Right? Based on what you just know, based on what you studied.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one tzaddik, that was the Rashash. Another tzaddik that was born after that was the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, from the Kabbalists of Italy. Extremely, extremely important person to know. His books changed the whole entire world, whether from the most yeshivish, the most from of the Mesilat Yesharim, I'm sure you know Mesilat Yesharim, or the Derech Hashem, the Way of God, which is a fantastic, fantastic map for anyone that seeks light in this world. Written.
Okay, so now we're talking about something fantastic, a beautiful bridge to what we're going to be talking about today. Because I think for some people, and I can think of friends of mine, you start talking mysticism, upper worlds, what the world is really made out of, the sort of spiritual building blocks of the world, and they start thinking, how does this apply to me? How does this affect me? I get some people are into that. I'm not into it. I certainly am into mysticism and spirituality, but I understand that not everybody is. However, to understand sort of where you fit in, where your soul fits in, where your community, where this world fits into the sort of world at large, starts to become, tactless, like, hey, now we're talking about what's what, why does this matter? Because at the end of the day, sort of the human mission, as it were, is to elevate this world, to repair it. And that starts by repairing yourself, right? So Rabbi Chaim Luzzatto was not just saying, generally, you need to do better yourself, you need to improve yourself. He started saying, what is the path for an individual to climb and to become that better version of him or herself that God intended for this human to be?
Right. That's fantastic. I like the way you put it. And this again, if we look at it now through the same lens, this is another part of the soul of the Ari. That means that his teachings are all based on the Ari's teaching. Now, based on this teaching, let's further what he would do in his years. And he revealed a whole nother aspect that's called Chokhmah, the wisdom, the Ramchal's Kabbalah, and then the third level, meaning, so there's the Neshama Chaya Yechida. And the Yechida, the highest level of the Ari, was the Baal Shem Tov. Was the soul of the Baal Shem Tov coming down. And what the Baal Shem Tov did, and this goes back to your question.
This is why we're connecting the Kabbalists in Tzfat to the founder of Hasidic Judaism in Europe, the Baal Shem Tov.
Abisal Baal Shem Tov. Who, there are very, very sophisticated teachings from him. His general message and mission was extremely simple, extremely accessible. It was global. It was for everyone, and it was. If you look at it really through those eyes, it's like kind of like completing the mission of redemption. Because if we're looking at redemption through the eyes of the Zohar, which is when this secret dimension is revealed and known to everyone, and the whole world could actually appreciate the world for what it is and appreciate, then the world is, so to speak, redeemed. Because what's the opposite of redemption? So it's exile. Okay, that's very nice words. But if you look deeper, when every individual is focused on himself, ignoring what's happening, that's exile. Then everyone, the unity of the Creator is not spread, because the world is not, the vessels of the world are not unified. But when this wisdom goes into the world and everyone understands what they are and how everything is one, that's redemption. That's Geula. So to complete this, to really bring this, like you were saying before, that this should not just be wisdom that's for the wise or wisdom that are in the books. How do people live like this? How do we live redeemed? So the Chassidut became a lifestyle where the Baal Shem Tov would go around Europe, and he would actually approach in cities the simple people, the shoemakers or the tailors or the wagon drivers or the water carriers.
Not the Litvaks.
not the he would let the presidents and all that. They wouldn't look at him, and
basically he was saying that God loves the devotion of the simple Jew.
Right, and that everyone is extremely, extremely important. Extremely. And not to think that the rabbi is more important than the shoemaker, because the mitzvot, and this is something that the Baal Shem Tov showed very much. He said, you're right, there's so much wisdom and so much respect for Torah. And that's true, it has its place and it's always gonna. But if a person doesn't know any Torah, nothing. They don't know how to read, they don't know how to write, so they could say, well, so I'm out of the story, what am I going to do?
This person wasn't privileged to have that Torah education, whatever his circumstances were.
So the Baal Shem Tov was saying, there's something called mitzvot.
The commandments.
The commandments. You wake up in the morning, the way you think about the Creator, the way you treat the other, the way you're honest in business, the way you make blessings on the food, the way you work. All these things are the way of bringing godliness actually into the physical dimension. So you're doing it. And showing the simple Jew how fortunate you are and how meaningful you are and how grateful the world is for your mitzvot, and to do the mitzvot with happiness and with joy. We're dealing with a tremendous part of Am Yisrael that would not have any connection to spirituality or to feeling a part of this belonging to the nation. They would say, yeah, the rabbis are, but we're like, no. And he said, that's totally not true. You're right. If we look at the 12 tribes, there are 12 tribes, and They're all so unique and so colorful. And there's one tribe called Levi, and there's scholars. And there's another tribe called Issachar, and they're also great scholars. We're dealing with 10 tribes of people, holy mitzvot. So this outlook was kind of lost in Europe. We're talking about 350 years ago at that time. And it was actually a real risk for Am Yisrael, for the bulk of the nation to feel connected, to feel excited, to feel inspired. And this is necessary to continue, you know. And the Baal Shem Tov was sent to revive those Jews of his time. And he created many students. Many was a focus of his during his life to create students. And his students on his own were tremendous masters of the highest levels in spirituality. And they all followed in his ways, which are promoting thoughts of love, Ahavat Yisrael, just really genuine love to the other, and being happy, simcha shel mitzvah, just being really happy with any good thing that we do, because it's so meaningful. If I, if I graduate my animal soul, my basic soul, and I decide to do something higher and something holier, it changes the whole world. It redeems the whole world. It changes the ratio of all mankind.
So let's review that for a second. One of these incredibly holy teachings that makes its way from the kind of Kabbalistic community in Tzfat through the teachings of the founder of Hasidism, the Baal Shem Tov, Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, to the people who didn't merit, that weren't fortunate enough to have these big Torah educations, Talmud educations, in places like Vilna in Lithuania. That's why we're joking about the Litvaks, who are kind of just known for tremendous Talmudic education, and it was great for them, but everyone else didn't necessarily have that privilege. And yet, every Jew is commanded, and by the way, every non-Jew has commandments as well, right? The 7 Noahide commandments. So if, when you're fulfilling one of the commandments of our Father in heaven, you do it, and then you add this extra dimension of taking joy in fulfilling the will of our Creator. So now you've just elevated that commandment in a huge way, and the action that you're taking on that day. And it won't be immediately apparent. It's not like, rays of light are going to come out because you washed your hands in the morning, or because you saw an animal that was burdened and you unburdened it. But nevertheless, you should know for yourself that whenever you fulfill a commandment, you're adding light to the world. You're doing something incredibly special that has repercussions throughout the spiritual world. This is fair to say?
Correct. And I think we could even bring it down a little more. Bringing light. These words are very, they're beautiful. And if we look essentially, what is light? So if we look at the balance of what we're made out of half animal, half God.
And now we can get to our topic of becoming God.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if we look at the darkness in us as the lower, the animalistic, the basic, the natural that we're born with, let's call that darkness, because that's what it is.
Absence of light.
Absence of light, or if a person just is selfishness, and it's meaning we're meant to graduate it. We're meant to evolve it and from it and with it. Very interesting. How could a person, so to speak, graduate his own basic nature? With what? It's just me. What am I becoming? And this is really the gift of mitzvot. The commandments that the Creator gives us are not just a bunch of random instructions. They're actually one lifestyle that the Creator of the world lives by, and it's all about transformation. It's all about transformation. Through these actions, a person slowly transforms his own, day by day, mission. It's decision by decision, challenge by challenge. It's always a choice. I want to be godly. I understand my starting point. I understand that this is how it is. And it's constantly in every relationship, in every decision, in every opportunity that I have. I always have this choice, so to speak. Should I just behave the way I am, or is there something godly or something holier that I could do here? And there's actually a story, an interesting story of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. You heard of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz?
I've heard of him.
So Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, Kedai researched a lot of fantastic stories. He was very, very sharp. He was one of these tzaddikim that was very, very sharp. And because he was so sharp and so wise, the king, the not-Jewish king where they lived, loved him. And would, ask him for advice, and he would come. And when he would come to the palace, obviously it was like, he's the rabbi, and like there's other people that didn't like what was going on. He's getting this favoritism, and they would challenge him to all kinds of questions, and he would always, just excel. So they had this standing kind of like debate between him and the other wise men of the king's palace, and they said that you could train an animal to change its nature totally. And to develop a second nature and totally forget its first nature. If you train it from a young age, and maybe the animal, the son of an animal, I don't know what their debate was. And he said, no, it's impossible. It's impossible to uproot animalistic behavior from an animal, meaning in order to do that, there has to be, it's a miracle. There has to be another soul in you, a godly soul that's helping you, and that's what you're becoming. Otherwise, you can't. And this is a standing argument that they had. Okay. So one day, Rabbi Yonasan is sitting in his study, and he's studying and learning. And they come to call him from the king. They say, the king wants you. And he had a snuff box with shmek tabak.
Snuff is very finely ground tobacco, right? That people would put a little in their nose and do a sneeze, and it would clear them out, right?
I'll tell you a quick joke on snuff. They say, why is it that when they take out the Sefer Torah, we say V'zot Torah with the pinky?
Right, so in synagogue services, right, when the actual Torah scroll comes out and it's lifted and shown to everybody, and we look at it
with
with our pinky.
So they say, why with the pinky? Because why not with the finger? Because you're holding the shmek tabak.
You can snuff in your
You
fingers.
gotta hold it. Yeah, you always use the pinky. So he has, and he notices something very strange. He's studying, and suddenly a little mouse comes up to the table. It goes into the snuff box. So he knows everything is Eshkacha Pratit. Anything, only the creator of the world does things.
Why did the creator send a mouse to my desk?
To sit in my snuff box. And he's not going out. He's there.
He's just sitting in the
He's
snuff
sitting
box.
there like,
I haven't heard this one.
and he comes and he's closing. He's staying there. Okay. Closes it, puts it in the pocket.
Takes the mouse with him.
With him.
Okay.
In the snuff box to the palace.
Okay.
All right. He doesn't know what's going on. He's running and he gets to the palace, and he sees some kind of great ball or some kind of thing. I don't know what's happening. Some kind of it's the king's birthday. Great. There's some kind in the ballroom, a grand thing. Wow, amazing. And Rabbi Yonasan is sitting there, and the whole royal. Imagine the scene. And they're enjoying the music, and suddenly the doors open, and the waiters come in, and the waiters are not humans; they're cats. They're cats walking on two with little, the little thing and the little hats, and they're walking around giving champagne and Rabbi Yonasan understands that he was entrapped over here. He walked in, and all the wise men of the king are sitting next to him, and they're laughing. And they say, "You tell us you can't train? Look at these cats.
We train them to be waiters.
Look at them. They're walking around, and they're not. Look, they're serving fish. They're not. Look at it.
They're not eating the fish. They're serving it.
They're serving it.
It seems like they've elevated their nature."
Rabbi Yonasan says, "Thank you, Hashem." Reaches to his pocket, opens up his snuff box, and out goes the mouse, and the whole room. Woo!
All the waiters start chasing the mouse.
It was game over. And this is a very strong idea that we have to understand first. We're not the animal. Our starting point is ki yetzer lev ha'adam ra. The Torah teaches ra. A person, when they study their raw nature, they have jealousy, kin'ah, ta'ava, kavod.
So you're saying that the nature,
the starting point of the animal,
point of the human is not so good.
Is animalistic.
Is animalistic.
Meaning because it's made from the four elements of the physical world after the sin. Mm-hmm. So it's already corrupt. So therefore, in your fire, you already have ego. You already have anger. In your water, you already have desires to wrong things that come from water. In your wind, you also have idle talk, just talking, using the mouth in the wrong way. And in the earth, there's the tendencies of sadness and laziness that are earthly. So these are the starting point, so to speak, of the raw animal soul. This is actually the first parak in the Tanya. Do you remember?
So the Tanya is the sort of foundational text of Chabad, the Chabad tradition, written by the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi.
Correct.
And so this is the text that created the Lubavitch movement within Hasidic Judaism.
Correct. And yeah, this is the deep understanding. And then he goes on to say, "V'hanefesh hashanit b'Yisrael hi chelek Eloha mima'al mamash." There's another nefesh, meaning if a person thinks that I am one spirit, no. There are many spirits, many spiritual identities that, so to speak, are us and that we are involved with, or that we choose, or that we become. And through a person wanting to graduate, so to speak, his animal soul and become more mature and become more godly, this is the ultimate function and purpose of the Torah and mitzvot. It's not a bunch of random instructions. And in the Kabbalah, when you look at it from the outside, it does look like that. But in the Kabbalah, they show you the inner thread and inner meaning of every mitzvah and how every mitzvah actually elevates you. What is every mitzvah geared to, so to speak, in the elevation of what?
So this is interesting. We have a teaching from the Talmud that if you're dining with a non-Jew, right? So he can eat a piece of meat that I can't eat. And the instruction was, we should not say to the non-Jew who invites us to eat the non-kosher meat, "Oh, no thanks, I'm not hungry." Rather, you should say, "That looks delicious, but what can I do? My Father in heaven said that I can't eat that." And I don't really understand why, but it was, my calling, my commandment, my role in this world, that you can eat the meat, but I can't eat the meat. So now we're saying, well, actually, some of these chukim, right, these laws that don't have an obvious sort of rational part, like it's obvious we shouldn't murder each other. What kind of a world are you going to have if anybody can go around murdering another person? But why can't we wear linen and wool together? Why can we not eat certain foods? Those would seem super rational. We can't quite be sure what it is. But on the one hand, we can say as an act of faith that if we follow this whole system that God gave us as Jews, or the 7 Noahide laws that God gave to everybody, that it is somehow for our own good, that following these commandments will elevate us. Now we're saying there's going to remain a mysterious component, but there's also going to be, some of that mystery has been revealed, and sort of how following these commandments will affect us, as it were, and how it will help elevate us.
Right. And that's why one of the main functions in mitzvot is simcha shel mitzvah, rejoicing and allowing a deep happiness and joy when a person is performing a mitzvah. Knowing that I am right now involved in an action that's the most important thing in the world right now. Let's say, what's a successful day? If a person made a certain, everyone has their different definitions of success. But when you look at your mission in life is really to graduate from your animal self and really to become godly. Every opportunity, every meeting, with people is meaningful, and it's a time and a way to become godly. Every mitzvah is deep. And simcha shel mitzvah is the level that the Ari Kadosh, he reached all his levels to rejoicing in a mitzvah. So that means that even if a person right now is sitting in his room doing nothing, and I believe in God, I believe in one creator. This is a mitzvah of emunah.
And this is universal.
It's universal.
This applies to all human beings.
Right? If I right now sit and I remember that there's one creator, and I believe that this one creator is constantly creating everything, creating the world, and I just take my conscious mind just to remember this. No more. Now, I could take this further. I could tell myself, my mind or myself, I'm doing what I should be doing right now. I'm not using my conscious mind for my own things. I'm using it really to remember my creator and to allow his unity and his awareness to come to the world. So I'm going to take this further. I'm going to allow my heart or my emotions or my whole being to really feel excited and to really feel fortunate and to really smile and be happy and really allow this deep, true feelings of happiness to excite me. Like, wow, I'm connected right now. I'm doing what I should be doing. And this is success for me. Success for me is not some kind of superficial goal, reaching some kind of superficial goal outside where the world tells you, oh, you're successful. This is success when you're, and just being in that place, and simcha shel mitzvah is the cause of elevation. Tremendous, tremendous cause of elevation.
This is spectacular. This is spectacular. Now we will take some questions. So if you've got some questions, put it in the comments. Nina's monitoring the comments, and she will, slide some questions over to me. So we'll just continue chatting ourselves for a few more minutes, and then we'll start taking some questions, which I'm sure will lead to more discussion. So that's so beautiful, and it's such a good thing to remember. Like, sometimes you think, okay, well, I want to elevate myself. What shall I do right now? Is there a commandment in front of me right now? Well, the answer is yes. There's always the commandment to know that there is one Creator who created you, who cares about you, who loves you, who wants you to succeed, who wants the world to be elevated.
I actually have a great story about this. Sorry.
Go!
Amazing story. One of my favorites. So, the story starts in Israel at a wedding, and this guy is a Holocaust survivor. He left the Holocaust, came to Israel, and rebuilt everything. He has 10 kids now, and he's at a wedding of one of his grandkids. Imagine. And his son is dancing with him, and his son hears the father go, ay, ay, ay. Like, sigh, like, ay, ay, ay. So, and then after a couple minutes, you hear him go again, ay, ay, ay. So he goes to his father and he says, Tati, I love you so much. Like, look at you. You won. You left the war. You left alone. And look at you. Have this empire, this family, this love, look at this, a whole nation, a whole tribe. Why are you sighing? And the father laughs and says, I'm not sighing. He says, let me tell you a story. He says, when they were in the camps, so we can't imagine. No one should ever have to imagine these things. The depression, the darkness, who could imagine? But he says what bothered them the most wasn't the physical and the who knows what they went through. Was it bothered them they had no mitzvot. No Shabbat, no Yom Kippur, Pesach, nothing, really nothing. Tefillin, like no identity, no connection, like everything that was their whole life. And they're sitting one night and they're discussing this, and one guy says, wait, there's 6 constant mitzvot. This is the first Mishnah Berurah brings it down, the Chinuch brings it down. And I'm going to write this down for you.
Okay. So these are the 6 mitzvahs that you can do mentally by remembering these things which were commanded in the Torah to remember. You shall remember.
I'm going to, here, you write it for you nicely. I.
I.
So
Aleph Yud.
Aleph Yud, Aleph Yud, Aleph Yud.
Okay.
So the first Aleph is Emunah.
Faith.
Believing that there's a creator. Mm-hmm. Taking my conscious mind to remember this, to focus on it. Yud, Yichud. Unity of the creator. These are 2 mitzvot d'oraita. 2 separate mitzvot in your mind. When I remember this creator and I focus on the unity of the creator, it's a separate mitzvah. So I could do this in my mind. Aleph, Ahava. To love the creator.
Okay, now this is a personal thing for me that I talk about a lot, and I will talk about again. I even mentioned it to you yesterday. But we're commanded every day to recite the Shema at least twice a day, where we say, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one," or our Lord. And then the next line is, "And you shall love the Lord your God." Now, you love your son, you love your daughter, you love your wife, you love your husband, the people that you love in your life. It would be weird to you to not say, I love you to them, right? That's just part of loving a person, is that you tell them that you love them, and it stirs feelings of love even as you're saying it in yourself and in the person that you love, and hopefully loves you back. So, when we're commanded to love God, it's not this abstract thing that you just recite a prayer in the morning and the evening and, okay, I fulfilled my duty of loving God. Not at all. You got to stir your heart to love God. And a great way to do that during the day, as often as you want, say, I love you, God. With your mouth out loud, not just with your thoughts. I mean, I started doing that 20 years ago. It's absolutely life-changing. You know, you can't imagine how much good it will bring to you to just tell God that you love God. And then it's also the beginning of a conversation, and you'll end up saying other things and what you're grateful for and what you hope for and what you aspire to. And it just brings the relationship from something abstract to something real. So if you love God and you're going to fulfill the commandment of loving God, so tell God you love God. So simple and so deep.
True.
So 3, that God created the world, that God is one, to love God.
Yud Yirah.
Yirah, fear of God.
Well, the fear, especially over 2023 in LA, we don't talk about fears. I would say the real idea is awareness.
Okay.
You're on camera.
God sees everything.
You're not scared of the camera. You're on camera.
Right.
You're aware. Okay. So that's why Yirah is the same letter as Re'iyah, sight. Or the same letter as Aryeh, which is also
like a lion.
A lion. There's also a fear, but it's not. It has all these.
But that idea, wake up like a lion in the morning to do the will of your Creator.
Right. But so this is Ahava Yirah. These are 2 mitzvot, and these mitzvot of Ahava and Yirah are the foundation of the whole Torah. Meaning, obviously, my relationship with anything will be based on this, your love or connection to it, and your feeling of respect from it. Or these 2 in the Zohar are called the wings. These are 2 wings. These are 2 general attitudes that every mitzvah has. When I'm about to come forth to anything with the Creator, what am I doing? Just robotic? Just automatic? No.
I'm doing this because I love God,
right.
And I'm aware that God asked me to do it.
Exactly. And I'm aware of also. I'm also aware of the consequences of it not happening, and there is a yira, because once you realize the importance that you were trusted with as being Adam, you're in a hot spot. You're in a very important position.
It's beautiful, right? You're Adam. You're a human, and that comes with a responsibility.
Oh.
You're on the hot spot because you were given the role of being a human being in this world.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Okay, so we have Emunah, Yichud, Ahava, Yirah. The third is Elilim, not to worship idols. Not even, this is in the mind. And the third is not in the mind, but it's to keep the eyes, to watch the eyes. So they decided that the Yud is like an eye, and they call it Einayim.
Okay.
That means, so these are 6 constant mitzvot. They're brought down, you could look it up.
So to just review again, the 6, Emunah, to have faith that there is a Creator who made the world and made you.
He's one.
And that he is one, there's only one. To love him, to be aware or have awe of him, not to direct your attention and worship to idols, which seemingly is easy, right? Who's worshiping idols these days? But there's all kinds of other drives that sort of fill the space, I guess, of avodah zarah, of idolatry.
The most dangerous idol is the self-worship.
Self-worship.
Is the worship of when you make your physical the attention, so then you're bowing down and you're worshiping it. It depends, like, where are you putting your energy? What are you investing in?
You say that my own feelings are primary, my own drives are primary, that's idolatry.
Meaning, if you don't see yourself, you're very, very important, and everything about you is important. You should give a lot of attention to yourself, but understand yourself in the scheme of things, in the scheme of the whole godly. If you just worship yourself, and all is just me, there's no bigger idol than that.
Okay.
And
then guarding the eyes, sort of directing your attention away from, for example, sexual lusts and objects, toward more holy places.
Correct. The eyes are a very the Gemara says in Saita, the Gemara says that the Rava teaches us the evil or the Yetzer Hara can only have control on what the eye sees. So if that's why, if a person just protects their vision or their expectations, they'll live a more meaningful life. If I walk around all day looking at what everyone has, you're never going to be happy with what you have. The eye, you cannot fill the eye. The eye cannot be filled. So
the eye is never satisfied.
Right.
Beautiful teaching, Alexander the Great.
Right, the Gemara, right? He goes on.
Yeah.
And just you see that all these are really connected, because if my memory is in the one creator, and if my love is, and my excitement is loving him, and if I'm aware and have awe of him, then of course I'm not worshiping myself, and of course I'm not using my eyes to keep on feasting on this world. I'm using my vision upward. I'm not using my vision downward. This is very important, because where a person puts their vision, their attention, that's where they are.
And so think about the beauty of this is that no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, you can take a pause and do a mitzvah right then and there, right? By focusing on your Creator, His unity, loving Him, being aware of Him, etc. Shall we have some questions?
Aye, aye, aye.
Yeah. Okay, so Shia Rothenberg says, what is Rav Avshi's view for someone who had a very traumatic experience upbringing of Hashem and difficulty learning Torah? How to rekindle some kind of connection with Hashem?
It's a fantastic question, and Chachamim teach us that in a way, b'derech sh'adam rotze lelech ba molichin oto. In a way that a person wants to walk, that's where they take him. That's where he gets guided. And first of all, Chazak u'Baruch, I'm blessing you on your will to do good, and don't stop wanting. And want and speak to the Creator, and constantly tell Him, Creator of the world, how much I miss you, and how much I wish I knew you in the real way. Practically, forgiveness is a very deep topic, very big topic, and what helps a person reach forgiveness is when they realize the benefit that they get by forgiving, and the truth of what it brings to the world. As far as learning Torah, so today in the system is like very, everyone learns Gemara. That's Gemara. However, the Torah is very, very big, and there's many aspects of Torah that the person that, let's say, was traumatized by his system, there's many other aspects of Torah that a person could study. For example, the Nach, the Navi. Navi is unbelievable.
So what we're talking about here is, if we're talking about the Bible, right? So the first 5 books are the Torah, and then we're getting into the next set of books of the Torah, the Nevi'im, right? The prophets. Right, and a lot of people don't pay enough attention to the rest of the Bible, right? They focus so much on the Torah.
Right, so chronologically it follows Moshe, and it goes into Yoshua going into the land. But this is the story and the development and the unfolding of our nation. The Gemara teaches us in Megillah that there were many, many, many prophets, way over 1 million prophets. And the reason we have...
Could you say that again?
Way over 1 million.
1 million prophets. It's not that the only prophets who existed were the ones who have books in the Bible.
No.
Other people were granted prophecy.
Of course, men, women, children. Of course, prophecy is a level that every Yehudi that's the basic level of every Jew.
Prophet.
Yeah. The fact that you're not a prophet now means you're not at your natural state. You're in a fallen state now.
Wow.
Our natural state is prophecy.
And what would you call prophecy? Is that a sense of not just thinking about God or reading about God, but experiencing God's presence and a communication that comes along with that?
That's true. It's experiencing God and His presence, but it's mainly has to do with the eyes, with the vision of a person, that a person is not from this world, from the lower dimension, really directs himself upward, constantly wants the up, always just wait there all day with his eyes up, like, so to speak, with his intention upward, not looking down at the physical. And
is that why the Torah so often says, for example, in Akedah Yitzhak, the binding of Isaac, the Torah is so terse. It tells huge stories with just a few words, and so every word counts. So why doesn't it just say Abraham saw? Why does the Torah say Abraham raised his eyes and saw?
Right.
And could this be why? It's, in other words, you'll see if you raise your eyes.
It's a higher
what
vision.
You're looking for.
Yeah. Raise your vision. It's not. It's like we're talking. It's not about lifting your eyes, but lifting your vision. So I told you guys on Shabbos what Helen Keller said or communicated. that she said it's the worst. What's worse than being blind is having eyes and no vision. Very deep. It's very deep. So my advice to this holy neshama and to many of my friends, people that come to me that were burnt out of the system or the way they were brought up, is that the prophets, the Navi, are there for us. Meaning all these millions of prophecies were not written down. So why were these written down? So the Gemara teaches us only the prophecies that are necessary for the future generations were written down. That means that today everyone that's alive wants to hear godliness talking to them. So the creator of the world took 24 books, and in these books are messages for you, messages for us, for every one of us that we need to hear, that we need to remember who are we, where are we going, what's Yerushalayim, what's purpose. There's no need to live in darkness. And the creator sent us, we have the Torah. And it's about tshuva sometimes is much easier. About tshuva comes from the world of no meaning, of nothing. It's something, wow, they discover God. Like, whoa, give me more, give me more, give me more.
About tshuva is like me, somebody who reconnects with Judaism.
Right, but someone that grows up in the system and is traumatized. There's unfortunately a lot of trauma and a lot of abuse in the system. We're in Galut. We're not blaming anyone, but there's a lot. For them, growing up, imagine that a person grows up empty and then they get medicine. But imagine that a person got the medicine in the wrong way. They're allergic to medicine.
Now
they developed a reaction
really
to the medicine.
Situation.
Right? How are you going to heal?
How are you going to reconnect if you think that the very thing that you need will hurt you?
Exactly. You're allergic to your own medicine, so to speak, in your mind. And that's to realize that we're allergic to the trauma and to really let go. And a deep good advice is to pray for all your friends that need forgiveness, because we all need it. And the Creator will grant you forgiveness, and you should be able to let go of anything and everyone in your life. No one should stop you. No one. This is post-traumatic. We're living in post-trauma. And to try to connect to the Torah through the Navi. Try to learn Yoshua, Shoftim, Malachim. Oh, you'll discover the most.
Joshua, Judges, Kings.
Learn the life of David HaMelech. You'll melt.
The life of King David is
wow.
the most exciting adventure story ever told.
And it's not just a story. It's not a biography. That means that if this is written, that means I have to know it, because this is what I need it. Why do I have to know? Not for information, to survive.
Right. It's not some archaeological story from thousands of years ago that's very nice, but what does it mean to me? No, it's happening right now.
Yes.
I need to learn the story of King David for my own well-being and for your well-being, for the well-being of the world. Each of us needs to learn that story. Let's do another question. Sharon Frant Brooks, in New Jersey, I believe. I have really tried to read the Zohar, and I struggle with it. I find I keep needing to go back over and over to reread sections to recall the teaching. Okay, Me too.
Me too.
Yeah, the Zohar is not a place to start.
The Zohar is also not a place to understand. When I understand things, my ego is inflated. And ego, if a person, means that Torah is called a drug. It's a drug of life or a drug of death. How could you say that? The Torah, the holy wisdom, how could it be a drug of death? It means that if a person only knows and their ego grows and their wisdom grows and the me and the I and the me and the I, then they become a big, fat, deflated, egotistical person. They're dead. That means that they took this experience and they took it to the wrong way to inflate their own ego on their own. That's Torah of understanding. There's Torah that you learn that you don't understand. And that causes humility. That causes you to really put yourself into place, and we need the balance of the both. Now, the Zohar, if a person learns the Zohar and understands one word or one concept, it's worth the whole thing. But the Zohar, besides for learning it for understanding, we learn it for purification, and we learn it for humility, and we learn it because the text of the Zohar, when you read it in the text, is mesugal letaher haneshama. It's like going into the mikveh. As a matter of fact, the Ari Kadosh, one of the stories was when he interacted with a very big Rasha, a very wicked person that came to him that wanted to do tshuva, and when he really realized how evil he was, and he came to the Ari and he was devastated. And Arizal told him, okay, your fixing is that you're going to stay here in Tzfat and you're going to study every day 10 pages of Zohar without understanding.
That's what you need.
Because
to undo the ego a little
exactly
bit.
what brought us to the place is the ego. It's sometimes so deep. So these are teachings of redemption. They're teachings of redemption, teaching of becoming. It's not teachings of the conscious mind inflating and feeling bigger. No, it's not. If a person studies it that way, then no. So my advice to you is to study in purity and good intention in humility, and involve a lot of prayer in it. Really turn to the Creator of the world and talk to Him about why you want to study and how close you want to be to Him, and how you want this light of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai to elevate you and to make you a better person. And through just learning it and praying, you'll receive an elevation from it.
I'll add one more little bit of practical advice. I don't know if this is any kind of holy teaching at all. It's just something that always helped me. Is when I find things confusing or where I'm looking for inspiration, whether in my own writing or something that I'm studying, if I just actually pick up a pen and paper, very revolutionary these days, and I just start writing with my hand, I am confused about, I am trying to understand, a little bit of wisdom starts to flow. It's not like I crack the code, but I'll always have an insight that I wouldn't have had otherwise if I actually just put the pen to paper and start writing. Mitch Blumenthal, my good friend in Florida, says, so glad I caught this discussion. Nathaniel Gutenberg says, thank you for this wonderful conversation. I've been to Tzfat once and hope to go back. Jan is being stuck. Thank you for adding light here. Katie Stoll, I'm enjoying your dialogue and learning what is so important to you and why. Thank you. Beautiful. People have really, really been fascinated by this. And let me also add that the Rabbi Schusterman, Gershon Schusterman, is going to be with us today. We're going live twice, right? I've been doing it in months, and we're going live today twice. And he'll be talking about kind of Jewish approach to death and mourning, and how to grapple with the devastation of loss, and how to find light in that darkness. And that's going to be at 2:45 p.m. Pacific today. So Rav Avshi, some final thoughts?
I feel very excited to be alive at this time. I feel thankful to the Creator to putting us in this exciting time. And I believe that whatever we could do to create love and brotherhood and understanding is precious. I think what you're doing here is very precious. The Baal Shem Tov has a famous story that he writes in a letter that his soul went up into the higher world, and he describes this very, very specific, very graphic, and he went into one chamber where he met Mashiach, and he asked Mashiach, when are you coming? And Mashiach told him the famous answer, when your well springs explode into the world, then the world will be redeemed from its shallowness, from its superficiality, and that's redemption. And everyone that's forwarding this message is a part of these cracking of the physical and allowing the light of the redemption to coming through as an extension of the Creator of the world. And it's fantastic. Anyone that's involved in spreading should continue spreading, should continue loving, should continue sharing goodness. And we should have the merit to really see the light just coming from everyone, from everywhere, and just really bring our nation together and really bring the world together to a beautiful redemption in Yerushalayim. So
Amen. May that day come soon.
Amen.
It's been a real joy to learn with you yesterday when I met you, and I said, I got to get this guy in front of our community. And I'm so glad that I did. This has really been a beautiful conversation. I hope everybody learned something of use. today. Certainly, just listening, is part of the journey. And I'm especially struck by these 6 constant mitzvahs, right? The things that you can actually do in your mind, commandments that you can fulfill just with your mind, wherever you are, remembering that there is a creator, he is one. We're commanded to love the creator, to have awe of the creator, to turn our attention away, from the ugliness, from the meaning idolatry, these negative practices that have tragically always been around and always trying to deter us. And what was the last one? Related.
The eyes.
The eyes. And right, we want to direct our eyes away from negative influences and toward the positive. And when we do that, we create repair in ourselves, and that necessarily creates repair in the world. And this is a practice that's always available to us. And I think, as Rav Avshi said from the beginning, that anytime we're doing a mitzvah, rejoice in it, right? So as soon as you've made this choice to follow the will of the Creator, right away you can start to enjoy that and create joy in it, feel the joy in it, and that'll spark you to do another mitzvah, God willing.
Amen. Well said.
Thank you so much for coming today. It's really been a pleasure. And please tune in just about an hour and a little more, 2:45 p.m. Pacific, where we'll go live again with Rabbi Gershon Schusterman, who's also one of our Table for Five contributors, and talking about sort of the Jewish way of grappling with loss and mourning. All the best, my holy sisters and